Welcome back, everybody. Ready to dive into another news
And
story.
always, what we got today?
Well, Helene, Hurricane Helene, to be exact, just slammed the southeast pretty hard. So we're going to unpack some of the fallout, specifically around, well, the whole Trump thing.
Oh boy. Okay, yeah, his visit to survey the damage is definitely making the rounds in the media.
Exactly. And our main source today is a piece from the Daily Beast. So, we're going in with our analytical goggles on. Should be interesting.
For sure. So what's the angle? What's got everyone talking?
They're really honing in on a statement he made during his visit to Valdosta, Georgia, one of the hardest hit areas.
Yeah, tragic situation, a lot of damage, fatalities.
Right. So he's there, and he says, and I'm quoting directly from the article here, nobody thought this would be happening, talking about, the hurricane hitting so late in the season.
That's interesting. Interesting because, well, it's just not quite accurate, is it?
Mm.
On a couple of fronts, we still have what, 2 months left of hurricane season?
Right, exactly. It's not like it's December.
Exactly. And, it's not as if Helene was a surprise. Meteorologists were all over this thing days before it even made landfall. This wasn't some out of nowhere freak late season storm.
Okay, so a little off on the timing, but is that really such a big deal? I mean, people misspeak all the time.
Sure, but you have to consider the source, right? This is a former president. Words carry weight. Even seemingly offhand comments, it can really influence how people perceive the situation. You start hearing that nobody thought this would happen, you might be less inclined to take those hurricane warnings seriously in the future.
It's a good point. It's
Yeah.
like they say, trust but verify.
Mm.
But who has time to verify everything, right?
Exactly. And unfortunately, this isn't exactly new territory for Trump. The Daily Beast article highlights some other instances where, well, his words and actions regarding natural disasters have, let's say, raised a few eyebrows.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who could forget the Puerto Rico incident after Hurricane Maria?
Right, the paper towels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not exactly the image of empathy and support a lot of people were hoping for.
No, not really.
And then there was that whole, and I still can't believe this one is real, the whole nuking hurricanes idea.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about those reports where he suggested using nuclear weapons to stop hurricanes before they hit the U.S.
Yes. I vaguely remember when that came out, but I just assumed it was a bad joke, like some dark humor.
Mm.
But he was serious.
Apparently, yeah. Multiple sources claimed he asked about it, proposed looking into disrupting hurricane formations off the coast of Africa with nukes.
Okay. And of course, the scientific community had a field day with that one, right?
Yeah.
I mean, besides the obvious ethical and geopolitical nightmare you'd unleash,
Yeah.
it just wouldn't even work, would it?
Not a chance. Hurricanes are just way too powerful. The energy involved, it dwarfs anything a nuke could throw at it. It'd be like trying to put out a forest fire with a squirt gun.
Right, like trying to fight Mother Nature with a fly swatter.
Pretty much.
Oh, and then who could forget Sharpiegate?
Ah, yes. The infamous Hurricane Dorian
The
incident.
one where he claimed it was going to hit Alabama.
Yep. Insisted on it, even with all the meteorological evidence to the contrary,
Yeah.
even had that doctored weather map with what looked like a Sharpie alteration, to try and make his point.
And of course, the National Weather Service had to step in and issue a correction, basically saying, nope, Hurricane Dorian is not hitting Alabama. We repeat, not hitting Alabama.
Which again highlights this pattern, doesn't it? This disconnect between verifiable scientific data and these public pronouncements that, whether intentionally misleading or not, don't quite line up with reality.
And that has to have an impact, right, on how people understand what's actually going on, how they prepare.
Absolutely. I mean, this isn't just about one hurricane, one statement, or one politician for that matter. It's a question of trust. Who are you going to listen to? Who are you going to believe? Especially when it comes to situations that can directly impact your safety. It's a recipe for confusion.
Exactly. You've got a hurricane barreling down on you, and you're stuck trying to figure out who to trust. Scary stuff.
Exactly. And that brings us to another layer of this story, and it's a big one. The whole climate change angle. Because you can't talk about hurricanes in this day and age without talking about climate change.
Right.
And that's where things get even trickier, because now you're wading into this whole other territory, this whole debate about climate change itself.
Which the article definitely brings up, by the way. They highlight how Trump has a history of just dismissing the whole thing,
Right.
calling it a hoax even.
Which feeds into that larger trend, right?
Yeah.
The politicization of science, where even established facts become debatable depending on your political stance.
Yeah, and that's what gets me, honestly, because it makes it so hard for people to even know what to believe anymore. It's like if you lean a certain way politically, you're almost programmed to accept whatever information fits into that worldview.
Exactly. Confirmation bias. It's a powerful thing.
It is, and I think you can see it playing out in how people are reacting to this whole Trump visit thing, too. You've got some people praising him for showing up,
Right.
saying it's about support, being there for those affected, even if it's symbolic.
Right. And then others are calling it a publicity stunt, a way to capitalize on a tragedy.
Exactly. And both sides probably walk away feeling like they're right.
Of course.
Yeah.
It just plays into those pre-existing beliefs.
And that's not even factoring in the whole social media circus.
Oh, right. The article mentions that, too. People going at it online.
Some accusing Trump of making it all about him, others saying he has every right to visit.
The perfect example of how social media can just escalate everything. No real conversation happening, just echo chambers.
Totally. Like everyone's watching a different hurricane play out.
Which is the danger, right? When we only surround ourselves with the information that confirms what we already think, it's almost impossible to have a productive conversation or even consider another side of the story.
So how do we break out of that? How do we actually start talking about these complex things, climate change especially, when it's so wrapped up in political identity?
Honestly, that's the million-dollar question. Part of it, I think, is just being self-aware, acknowledging our own biases.
Because we all have them.
Right.
We do. But then being open to hearing other points of view, even if, and maybe especially if, they make us uncomfortable.
Which, let's be real, is way easier said than done. Especially these days.
100%. But it feels crucial to at least try. Otherwise, these divisions just keep getting deeper and deeper.
And in the meantime, hurricanes keep coming. Helene's a pretty stark reminder that the stakes are only getting higher. It's easy to get caught up in the immediate reactions, like the political back and forth and what everyone's saying online. But the truth is, a storm like Helene, it doesn't just disappear once the news cameras move on.
That's for sure. You're talking about putting communities back together, literally rebuilding people's homes, businesses, gone. And the long-term impact, oof, it's huge. And that's when the real work starts, right? The long, difficult recovery process. And that's where agencies like FEMA are supposed to step in.
Right.
But even FEMA, as essential as they are, well, they're not immune to politics.
Sadly, no. We've seen it with Katrina, with Maria in Puerto Rico. Disaster response becomes this political football, accusations of mismanagement flying around, delays.
And you just know it's going to happen again with Helene, especially with Trump already taking shots at how the administration's handling things. Every dollar FEMA spends, every move they make, it's all going to be analyzed through this hyper-partisan lens.
Yep. It's become the norm, hasn't it? And that does real damage. Creates confusion, distrust. People might not even seek out help when they desperately need it because they don't know who to trust.
It's like we're so busy trying to score points that we forget there are real people hurting, families who have lost everything. It's more than just a political talking point. These are real lives.
Absolutely. And it speaks to this bigger issue we're dealing with when it comes to climate change. Can we, and I don't know if we can, but can we separate the need for action, real solutions, from the political circus that seems to follow these conversations everywhere?
Right. It's not just about hurricanes anymore, is it? It's wildfires, rising sea levels, it's everything. These are global problems that need global solutions.
And yet we're stuck in this cycle of blame, denial, short-sighted thinking. Climate science is debated, renewable energy is debated. Even acknowledging that humans have something to do with it is a debate.
It's like if we can't even agree on what the problem is, how are we ever going to fix it?
It can feel hopeless, I get it. But I do think, even with all the noise, the political back and forth, the social media yelling, there's some hope out there.
How so?
Well, people are paying attention, especially younger generations. They know they're going to be the ones dealing with the consequences if we don't figure this out.
That's true. They're the ones who are really going to be inheriting this mess.
Exactly. And we're seeing communities come together after these disasters, showing incredible resilience, sometimes more so than the systems that were supposed to be there to support them.
That's a good point. So maybe, just maybe, these intense natural disasters will be the thing that finally gets us to act.
I hope so. Because as we've seen with Helene, there's no time to waste.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, everyone, that wraps up our deep dive into Hurricane Helene, the political fallout, and what it all means for the future. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and as always, thanks for listening.